I went through the chapter Selling More Shit, and at the end of it, I say, there's a few pitfalls that I perceive or see many entrepreneurs or people in startup that they face, right? The pitfalls are, so there's some common themes, and some of the common themes that I point out are, one, that when there starts to be trouble in a startup, or when things you start to struggle, maybe revenue isn't performing the way you want it to, typically people go into this, what I call the blame game. They're blaming everything else, right? They're blaming external factors. They're blaming, in our world, maybe a franchise owner starts to put some blame on us, right? That the store isn't performing the way it should, and so oftentimes what people do is they externalize the blame, and really at the end of the day, there's a quote by Estee Lauder that I love, and it is, if the product doesn't sell, it isn't the product's fault. Right? And it's like so simple and dumb, but it's so true, right? We have to own it, right? It's ours. If something isn't working, if the product isn't selling, it's our fault as the entrepreneur. And so that's pitfall number one. And what you have to do as the entrepreneur is, if the product isn't selling or the business is struggling, you got to fix it. Period. Hard stop. The second pitfall that I communicate here is the concept of not going all in. And, dipping your toe in the water and kind of seeing how it feels, right? There's a real power in going all in and announcing to the world that you're going all in, and then going all in, right? Like you do have to do that part too. But and one of the things that I like to communicate is that if you kind of do it, you will kind of get results. And I believe that is true in the marrow of my bones, right? So you got to go all in. I had an experience in college where, I wanted to play in this one certain golf tournament. I'd always wanted to play in this one certain golf tournament. I think I'd tried for 2 or maybe 3 years in a row to qualify for this thing, and I didn't qualify. And then I think it was my senior year, I just announced to the world that I was going to qualify and that I was going all in, right? And I worked so hard, right? I mean, we're talking 5-6 hours a day practice and whatever. And there's a real power in that commitment, telling everybody, and then going all in on your effort level. And that unlocks, right? The end of that story is I did qualify for that tournament my senior year, which was a huge accomplishment for me because I wasn't that good of a golfer. Yeah. So this next concept is counterintuitive to many, and that is heeding too much advice. When you go into business, you announce to the world you're opening a business, everybody's going to have an opinion. I mean, everybody. Like the clerk at the grocery store is going to have an opinion, right? Your neighbor's going to have an opinion. Everybody's going to have an opinion on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. It seems everyone's an expert on opening a business, right? Or, they had an uncle that did it, or, whatever it might be. And nobody knows your business better than you. And so, I had 2 concepts that I executed. One was I had my circle of advisors, and they were all in my brain. And so I had like 6 people that I would go to at any given moment in time and get them to weigh in on whatever I was dealing with. And I did, when you have a circle of advisors of people that you know well, they're your mentors, you know what they're going to say to you. Like you actually don't even really need to talk to them, right? You have a pretty good idea. And so I always had that running. And then the other one was I always had my mom on one shoulder and I had Mary Roselle sitting on the other shoulder. And I figured at the end of the day, if those 2 were cool with what I'd been up to that day, I was good. Right? Sometimes I had to cover my mom's eyes, but other than that, and then this is also really controversial, and but we got to remember, this is startup, right? This is the startup moment, and that is, some of your worst advisors in startup can be your accountant and your attorney. Right. And because they take you and they grind you into this place of protection, liability, limiting liability, and so on. And like Bob and I had an accountant tell us at one point, guys, listen, like, you're way too fast. You're growing it's too much. You're growing. And it was like, dude, we need cash. And we got one way to get cash, and that is to sell product, right? And so slowing down would be a debt. So we fired that accountant, and we ended up hiring Dennis Tice, who we were with for a very, very long time. But like, attorneys and accountants are great, and they need to point things out to you, the risk. They need to point out the risk that's ahead of you or in front of you, but then you're the one that has to make the decision, right? And now I'm not talking about mature companies here. Again, I'm talking about startup, right? And so attorneys and accountants, they typically were good students and followed the rules. And just about every successful entrepreneur I know was not a very good student and doesn't follow the rules. So I'll leave you with that on that topic. Okay, and then lastly, just a reminder that when you're in startup, your focus is to sell more shit, and you got to spend 80% of your time figuring out how to sell more product. And most people don't approach it that way. And I make one of the sternest statements of the book, closing out chapter 2, and that is, I'll just read it to you. If selling isn't your obsession, pack your bags, leave your money in the money market account, and take a nice vacation, because business startup is going to be difficult for you. And I believe that to be the strongest premise of the entire book right there. And it closes chapter 2, which is my favorite chapter, and I think the most meaningful chapter of this book.